Dr. Mehmet Oz, cardiac surgeon, host of the Dr. Oz Show, joins us today. He's become a household name after appearing on the Oprah Winfrey Show 10 years ago. It's been that long. He's in Australia giving us health tips. Welcome to the studio, Dr. Oz.
Well, thank you. I just finished taping my 900th show of my own.
Wow.
After I probably did 80 with Oprah. We launched a show together, Dr. Oz Show. It's on Channel 7 here, as you know. And I was walking to the studio this morning there, and it was remarkable to see how many crazy, weird problems people come to you with.
What's an example? What do you mean? What's some of the craziest?
Well, this morning I had a question about a testicle issue, which
Doesn't
come up in common conversation usually.
Well, I'm sorry about that. We're in the lift together. And I thought,
Exactly.
That must be the bane of your life, though, being a public medical practitioner, is that people just, everywhere you go, would want to talk about their rashes and their areas.
Yeah, but why not? I mean, after I tortured my teachers to learn this stuff, and you can have a conversation about folks that they normally would be too embarrassed to venture into, but they know that you'll be talking about it on a show that's seen by a couple million people, so at least someone else is benefiting. So even though they won't ask their own practitioner, they're willing to ask you in public because they're actually being altruistic. They're willing to share. So this question have to be a private one, but I get questions like that all the time. You know, women who've got stuff stuck in there, women, and then there are more serious things like they got weight they can't lose, or problems with bodily discharges, all kinds of wacky things.
so just going back to with stuff stuck in there.
I knew you get stuck on that point.
Is that all you're interested in?
No, you're not curious about that?
So I had a woman come on the show recently who had been intimate with her lover on the beach.
Yeah.
And so the sand got up in there. And in women, that's like an accordion. And when the sand gets in there, it begins to rough it up a little bit, and it is really uncomfortable. So I thought this was like a pearl, exactly, very nicely stated, elegant metaphor. And so I thought it was a rare one-off. I got so many notes from women saying I was at the shore, you got the sand got pushed into by the ocean. I mean, you can do it in very, understandable ways that you never would have expected, but it's pretty common. And how do you get rid of it? And who do you ask for advice on that kind of stuff?
How do you get rid of it?
Well, body will sort of milk it out itself, so you don't want to put a lot of crazy things in there. But that's one of the few times a little saline irrigation is not a bad idea.
Right.
Cripes. Is it frustrating to you that we have so much knowledge at our fingertips, but and Australia is the same as the States, we're getting bigger and bigger, and we know what makes us sick, but we still do it all?
Well, I write for New Idea magazine, and we've got a big survey in this week's issue that takes people through some of the big mistakes they make. The reason I wrote the survey is because we finished a survey of about 5,000 Australians about their health, and about a third of people think that they're doing really well. That's not very much. A third of people think that they have great energy. Again, not very much. And that matches up to a lot of other problems we're seeing. Weight gain, issues with getting the cold and flu all the time in the winter season as we are now. These are issues that folks don't realize they control. So if you start to think about health as something the doctor takes care of in the hospital, you're mistaken. You need to fight that battle in your home, in your kitchen, your bedroom, your living room. That's where you get healthy. And the simplest decisions, like the foods you eat. I mean, when you walk into a grocery store, you're walking into a pharmacy. There's no question about it. The power of those foods is remarkable. So I'll give you an example. If I'm going to ask you, here's a question from the quiz. Do you have an S-shaped poo at least 3 times a week?
Mine's like I did a Q the other day.
Q?
A Q.
Oh, how proud you should be.
I know. I
3 times, maybe. Is S good?
S is good. You want to have a letter shape. You don't want to have like a period or a comma. If you sound like a bombardier dropping little pellets into the toilet bowl, frankly, if you can hear the poop hit the water, that's bad.
Really?
Yeah, it should be diving into that water like a Greg Louganis Olympic effort, hitting the water effortlessly with no splash.
And what do we do to generate those kinds of poos?
Well, that's the food issue, right? If you want to know if you're eating the right food, look at what comes out of you. You can look at your urine. You can look at your poo. We talk about this on the show all the time. And by analyzing what's coming out of you, which I know everyone looks, you just don't know what you're looking for. I mean, does it float? What color is it? All these things are actually important for us. The shape, how often. And so if you're eating the right foods, enough fiber, for example, enough fluids, then you'll be able to make those S-shaped or even Q-shaped poos if you're really ambitious.
And the floating one's bad?
If your poo floats, it means you have extra fat in your diet. Oh. So fat floats. Whereas a poo that sinks to the bottom is very dense. So you want sort of a poo, oftentimes that's half floating, half sinking, like angling like a submarine.
I'll look at the swimming in the Olympics a little differently.
Yes.
Or Greg Louganis. Amanda actually does the alphabet.
Oh, good for you.
It's like alphabet soup in there.
So obviously nothing embarrasses you. You're up for any question. I mean, don't look at us. We're not going to ask you anything embarrassing, are we, Jonesy? But you're one of those guys that you just say anything goes. Better to have it all said.
Well, listen, but most of us hear about the really important things, the things that embarrass us when we're about 5 years of age from our moms. And maybe the mom got it wrong. Maybe we don't remember it right. Maybe things change. We have different reasons or explanations. So you might as well ask those questions again. We just talked about a couple, but there are many, many other ones that we have there's these beliefs that really aren't that accurate, and it holds us back from being who we could be. Listen, at the end of the day, when I talk about health, it's not just about living a little bit longer at the end of life. It's about feeling better today.
Yeah.
And the side benefits of that are they accrue and they're huge. And we sort of think about health as just a small little issue. If you can't control your body, how can you change the world outside of it? And that's really what it's about. It's about mental resilience, feeling that you actually make a difference, and you can live the best life. You can live the good life. And the good life's not just about making more money and having nice cars. The good life is primarily about doing what you want to do in life, getting what you really desire. And your health is part of that. You cannot be a wealthy person or a wealthy nation, frankly, if you're not healthy.
And you're supposed to, things like coffee enemas and stuff like that. People say, get a colonic. That's great. Does that actually work? Is that because cavemen didn't get that stuff?
Do you enjoy them when you get them?
Well,
He tries to dunk a biscuit, which I think
Oh
is
my
awful.
goodness, that's terrible. No, I would not do coffee enemas. Listen. The issue with enemas is that when you go to the bathroom and you're healthy, that S shape is literally the cast of your colon. That's the last bit of the rectum, the intestines that are about that sort of the holding place for the poop. So when it comes out, it should all be evacuated. Putting extra stuff in there doesn't help you much. And there's always a little bit of concerns I have when you're tossing things in there, because most people are not well trained in putting things up their bottom. So you're better off, leaving that to the side and eating the things that naturally give you the equivalent of an enema.
right. So if you're going to put stuff up your bottom, leave it to an expert.
Leave it to the professionals.
Yeah, no dunking of biscuits down there.
Things like the paleo diet, is it good that we're focusing on healthy eating, or is it just any fad's a bad one?
No, I think it's good that we're focusing on these approaches. The reason we call these fads is because they don't work for everybody, but most of these diets do work for some people, and we're all different. So the paleo diet's an example. Paleo diet basically is going back and eating the way prehistoric man did. Now, prehistoric man did not eat meat every day. That's a misbelief. Prehistoric man ate mostly grains, whole foods, real foods, nuts, things that came out of the ground looking the way they look when you eat them, because that's all they could do. They couldn't process it. Those are the foods we should be eating. But some people don't like that food, so they're not going to do it. And that's the most important thing I'll share with you, by the way. The best diet for you is one that you love that happens to be good for you. Don't eat foods that are good for you, because if you do, that tastes like cardboard to you. Be stricter about it. Because it's not a wind sprint, it's a marathon. You want to be able to do it every day. A paleo diet happens to appeal to a lot of people, but not to most. So if you happen to like that kind of food and you feel good on it, please keep eating it, because you can do it for a long time. If you like the Mediterranean diet, I'm a Turk, so I like Mediterranean food. And it gives me a lot of the nutrients that I desire. I can eat that every single day of my whole life and never get bored. So if you like that kind of food, then it's good. Then it happens to be good for you, by the way. Go off and do it. But if you want the standard American diet, which people in Australia eat all the time, we can call it the standard Australian diet. The acronym is SAD, S-A-D, right? That's not what you want to be eating.
No.
And that throws you off. And a good example are omega-3 fats, for example. We have this belief that fats are bad. It turns out some fats are not only good for you, they're essential for you. So most of your brain is fat. In that survey that I mentioned with New Idea Magazine, that one of the biggest concerns Australians had, frankly, it's probably the biggest concern, is they won't be able to remember what's going on as they get older. And one of the best ways of avoiding that is by having omega-3 fats. But if you're not eating omega-3 fats, which come classically from fish oil, but you can get them from, calamari now, because that's a pretty sustainable source of them. There are other sources as well. Make that part of what your diet is, and you'll naturally feel more alert. It happens to be good for your health, your joints, and everything else. Instead of taking all the pills and medications, or just lying in abject fear that you're going to get dementia when you get older.
Wow. So what about drinking?
1 drink a day for women, 2 for men, has been associated with longevity. You know why it's 1 versus 2, by the way? Men have an extra enzyme in their stomach that digests alcohol. So only half of the alcohol a man drinks gets into his intestines. All the alcohol that women drink gets into their intestines.
What if you amass all your drinks? So 1 drink a day, 2 for men. So can you not drink all week and then just have a giant session on a Friday night?
Negative. Binge drinking is bad at all levels, because your liver can't cope up. See, alcohols are toxins at their very core. So if your liver is a healthy liver, it can detoxify you a little bit. In the meantime, you have a good time with your friends, you relax, drops your blood pressure, all those good things. But if you have alcohol for breakfast by yourself, that's not good. Or if you get it all at once, again, not good, because your body's not designed to do that.
What about smoking? Because they say there's no...
No one can say
Well,
smoking
no,
is
not
good.
that, well, there used to be ads that doctors, 9 out of 10 doctors smoke Camel or something like that. But my point is with smoking, and I used to be a smoker, but sometimes you get these ads that almost enable smokers to go back to smoking, the Nicobate and all that sort of stuff. And they say, well, if you fall off the wagon and have a smoke again, then it's okay. But then other ads say, if you have one smoke, you will die.
It's not that the one smoke will cause you to die, but smoking is the biggest trigger for more smoking.
Yep.
And so for folks who are... Listen, the biggest issue with smoking is that people who smoke know it's not good for them. And so telling them that it's bad for them just gets them anxious because they don't feel like they're competent. They feel like, my goodness, what a failure I am. So they go off to relax and they smoke. So this month I had Whoopi Goldberg. I tape my show in the same place that The View tapes their show in the U.S. It's a big talk show. We'd hug, and I'd always purposely hug her to smell her.
Because she
smokes.
Oh.
And so I would talk to Whoopi about this, and she said, listen, the fact of the matter is I'm an addict. I know I'm an addict. Of all the things to be addicted to, cigarettes is probably one of the better ones because I've had other addictions. They're not so friendly. So I got off her back. And the other day she hugged me, and she confided in me that she'd stopped because she didn't smoke cigarettes anymore. So I had her come on the show recently, and we had a very heartfelt conversation about what actually catalyzed her. And she told me something that most smokers ultimately tell me when they stop. She saw, in her case, 2 little kids who had cystic fibrosis, and they were struggling with just taking one breath. And here she was smoking, abusing her breath. And when she realized the sacredness of the body and how these kids would give anything to be able to do what she could do, which is to breathe, she gave it up. And that's the big message for smokers, any other addicts, realizing that you're worth it. And also recognizing that people don't change what they do based on how they think about things. They change based on how they feel about things. If you can feel differently about cigarette smoking, if you realize the specialness of who you are, then all of a sudden it changes all that.
It's interesting you mentioned the smell. When I was at school, my teacher said that when she was at school, they didn't have any medical information about whether smoking was bad or good for you. Someone brought in a cardigan. The teacher brought in 2 cardigans. One smelled of perfume, one smelled of stale cigarette smoke. And the girls were told, which one of these do you want to smell like?
Yeah.
And it was the vanity that did it, rather than any medical information. I think that probably could still hold true.
Oh, without question. We've learned one thing for sure. The way you get people to stop doing bad things for themselves is make it uncool. So in Australia and the United States now, young kids will either think they're dumb if they smoke, so they won't, or they think it's uncool, or they're so troubled by what's going on in life that they'll start, but it's a much lower number. And the key about cigarette smokers, and the cigarette companies know this, if they get you smoking before age 20, they got you. If you can just stall till age 20, your ability to quit if you want is dramatically improved.
Really?
And so that's the fighting area. That's why e-cigarettes are such a controversial area. They actually absolutely are beneficial.
So the electronic cigarette, and they've banned them in Western Australia
Right.
here.
The vamping is, all the different techniques, they all work well. However, remember this, if you market them to kids, make them bubblegum flavored, all this other stuff, then you get kids that think that it's okay just to use those, and then they just upgrade from those to cigarettes.
Right.
So that's the big challenge that we all face. Listen, again, at its very core, if kids realize that they can change their destiny, then they can do everything they want to do in life. And things like cigarettes or food or alcohol, all the other addictive personality traits that they are inclined to try out when they're young, it hooks them early enough that they haven't matured. I just had my 54th birthday. That's why I came to Australia, really. It wasn't just for New Idea magazine or my show. I came because I want to, where else could an Oz be but with Oz's on his
Sure.
birthday? And I'm 54. And what I love is the fact that in our 50s, we actually have our healthiest decade. Because
Really?
emotionally we're in our right place and physically we still got it together. But it takes you a couple decades to figure out life. So when you run off there and make mistakes early on and think that you're not as good as the other person because of those things, and people are hampering you because of that, that's a disservice.
So when you can poo the alphabet, then
Then you're good to go.
you're good to go.
And all the other fun things like that.
Well, Dr. Oz, don't miss the special report, Get Real About Your Health, in New Idea right now. Dr. Oz, thank you.
It's been a great blessing.
Do we give you our Medicare card, by the way?
Yes, I'm going to collect the co-payment,
Right.
which you're just starting to charge now. And or you can catch me on Channel 7. We're here every day.